I am an enormous fan of David's work, focusing and helping us to understand the corrupting influence of these special interests in all sorts of areas of law. And I do think that there's an incredibly important risk that the same corrupting influences take over in this process as well. But I think the response to that risk is not to run and hide under a rock or to say, oh my gosh, we can't do it, so let's just accept a broken constitution that doesn't represent us and just live with the problems it creates. The response should be to find a way to block exactly that from happening. Now, the one thing we know about this process, because you've emphasized it so repeatedly, is we haven't actually had a lot of these types of conventions. So the mechanisms of special interest control are not well developed. But let me tell you, David, I will stand with you. We'll work together, you and me, to make sure that when these processes happen, we will not allow them to be captured in the same way. Now, I'm not so naive to say that's easy. None of this is easy. It's just important to fix these problems, and if we're going to fix these problems, it's also important to make sure your concern is addressed, that it's not corrupted in the process.
Walter Olson.
And yet imagine, let's say the balanced budget is the topic of the convention. Imagine trying to keep everyone who has a direct interest in budgetary issues, which means practically everyone who depends on a government program, everyone who pays taxes. These groups will, of course, involve themselves. They are all special interests, and practically every special interest in the country is going to be interested in a balanced budget amendment. The idea that somehow or other we can purify the process by eliminating everyone who has an interest in federal budget outcomes, we'll be left with an empty room.
Can I address that?
Mark, yes, please. Mark Meckler.
The idea that we believe that this process will be inherently pure is absurd. We understand politics. In fact, Larry and I both have worked at the foot soldier level in politics for a very long time. We understand how they work. The difference between what you're professing and I believe what Larry and I are professing is a fundamental underlying difference in philosophy about the American body politic. I believe in the American people. When I look around this room, I see my fellow citizens who, whatever their political ideology is, they're here on a weeknight because they think we have a problem and they're willing to come out and do something about it. There are millions of them all over the country, and the process will be driven by them. And you believe in an elitism that says only the special interest and the moneyed powers control things. We just saw that not be true in this election cycle, frankly, almost on both sides. People still in this country have more power than special interests.
I'm not sure your opponent said that, but I wanted...
I actually didn't say that.
No. So, who would like to respond? David, let's hear from you.
Well, if it were the people doing it, if we were going to have the people in this room opening up the Constitution, frankly, the stakes are so high with respect, I'd be nervous about that as well. But that's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is the United States Congress, the very Congress that you have been railing against and that deserves to be railed against, deciding what the ground rules are and telling the states what to do. And my guess is they will have the state legislatures pick the delegates. Why wouldn't they? My understanding is that there have been practice or mock conventions where it was stocked with state legislators. It likely would be state legislators. These are politicians who are, as Professor Lessig said, raising money round the clock and are going to be very tied to the interests that provided their money. Many of them would like to go to higher office and will be responding to those interests.